Hola chicos, Jessie here. I just wanted to make a video for you so that you can understand how it is that I would like for you to engage with this text since we've never really done this before. Um, and in the previous video, you should have already watched it. It should have already shared with you how to access the book, how to play the audio, how to flip through the pages, and we've already done that in our Google Hangouts. We've done that live, so hopefully you should be well aware for how to go ahead and do all of that. But what you see in front of you here are two pages, and I have them both open side by side at the same time. And you may be asking, why is it that I've done that? Um, Reason being is because, let's say, for example, that I ask you, once you're done reading the whole book, please read the chapter first. And as you're reading, I do want you to always keep track of vocabulary that comes up. And I'll circle back to that at the end of this part. But let's say, for example, that I ask you to complete Capítulo 1, Preguntas de Comprensión. So on the right hand side, I've already clicked it, I've already opened it, and I have question number 1. It says select all the answers that apply. La madre de la narradora dice que Alberto es un criminal, es un bruto, causa muchos problemas, no es buen padre. And so let's say I can't remember what the mother of the narrator says about Alberto. So I'm going to want to go back to the page that has the book right there for me. And I'm probably going to want to make the book large so that I can actually read it. And I'm going to need to skim through the chapter to find the part where it was that the mother was talking about Alberto. And I can remember it was somewhere here. Here I see they're talking on the phone. Doesn't look like she's saying anything about Alberto. I'll probably have to skim through that a little bit. And then on this last page, I see she says, Ay, Alberto causa muchos problemas, me dice mi madre. So right there, that was one of the answer choices. So I'm going to want to come back here and select causa muchos problemas. But it does say select all answers that apply. And so I'll probably want to go back and see, does she say that he's a criminal, that he's a brute, or that he's not a good father? And so when I open this up, I see she says, Sí, Alberto, él es bruto, me dice mi madre con indignación. So she did say that he's a brute, and she says that he's obsessed, and I don't see her saying that he's a bad father. So let's go back here. And she did say he's a brute, and I didn't see her say anything about him not being a good father. So let me just go back and check and make sure that she didn't say, as I skim through here, that he's a bad father. I don't see anything there that says that she said that. So I'm happy with my answer choices, and I can go ahead and move on to the next question. So this is just a very simple tip to help you as you're reading the text. Think about potentially having two windows open and being able to go back and forth between the two, because obviously within this one window where I'm answering the questions, I don't want to, in this same window, go back here to the URL and go to the text. I would want to do that in a different window so that I can easily go back and forth. If you have a second device, then that probably would be the best way to go about doing it, because then you don't have to go back and forth between two pages. That's a very simple tip. Again, I thought that you probably could easily come up with that on your own, but just in case you hadn't thought about that, I want to make sure that you realize that this should be, fairly simple, fairly straightforward. And this, I think, will help you be able to easily access what it was that you were reading and be able to answer those comprehension questions. Again, make sure, please, that you read the whole chapter first and then you answer the questions. And as you're answering the questions, if you need to check your answer because your memory is not 100% about the exact details, go back to the text to find that section and make sure that your answers are accurate. Just like you would if you had a book, a physical book that you're reading in the classroom, you would want to read the whole text first, then answer the questions. Some of you may want to potentially, look through the questions first and then read the text and then answer the questions. And of course, you can still access the text as you're answering the questions. But the idea is not to just answer the questions by skimming through the text, because that is not going to help you with learning Spanish as much as it will if you are truly reading the text and trying to engage with it in a thoughtful manner. Okay, so all of that I had mentioned, all of that is done. I had mentioned previously that I wanted to talk about the vocabulary. So as you're reading on in a notebook or something, please keep track of words that come up that are new, that you think are going to be really useful to you, whether it's because in the past you were having a conversation and you were searching for that word and you couldn't find it in your brain. And now you're like, oh, I could have used that word. So you can choose to keep track of that word. Or if it's a word that you think will be really useful to you as you're having your conversations. Let's say, for example, you feel like you're constantly getting interrupted, then you might want to keep track of the word interrumpe, for example. Something that you think will be really useful to you. And also something that you think that you'll be able to easily incorporate without it being too complex. You want it to be accurate for your level. Okay, with all of that being said, please keep track of no more than about 3 to 5 words per chapter. If you're keeping track of 10 words per chapter, it's going to be really hard to remember those words. It's just overload for your brain. Plus, the thing is, I'm going to ask you to, at some point, probably create a seesaw video where you're acting, drawing, or circumlocuting that vocabulary. And so if you're making really long lists, you're going to have really long seesaw videos to make. And the point of those seesaw videos, excuse me, is not to create tons of work for you. It's to help you, be accountable and demonstrate that you are learning along the way. So I don't need it for it to be tons of words. Per usual, this is just an example document. I'm going to ask for you to keep track of your words in your Google Doc. And as you'll notice, each day is labeled with the correct heading, with the date. This is an example that I basically stole from somebody. And they did an excellent job, although they weren't required to also keep track of some definitions of the words. And that might be a helpful tool to do. They have in here their, my goodness, my voice, I'm sorry. They have in here their brainstorm for their act of kindness. And they also have their Quizlet links. And they have in here their brainstorm for their Senior Wooly video. For those of you who did such a thorough brainstorm. This was excellent. This is exactly what I was looking for in terms of brainstorms. Most of us were not quite so detailed. Being that the Senior Wooly was a large project, I was expecting a lot of details. Unlike the act of kindness, I wasn't expecting a lot of details. But I digress. So let's say this person left off with their last heading as notes 3-4. So I'm going to want to make the next one say 3-5, and the date, if it's Monday, would be the 27th of April. And let's say, for example, that word bruto, root. I actually don't think that that would be a common word that would come up that much in your life. But let's say, for example, you think it is, so you decide to keep track of it here in your list. One of the words I pointed out was interrumpe. So if you think interrupt is a good word, you might keep track of it, and so on and so forth. One thing that I am no longer going to be asking for you to do is I will no longer be asking for you to make a Quizlet set or to keep that Quizlet set obviously in your Google Doc, because you won't be keeping track of it. You won't be required to create one. So why, Jessie, are you no longer requiring us to make Quizlet sets? Because it seems off of the 2 weeks of experience that I've had with students doing that at home, it's been sort of tedious, and some students are keeping up with it really great and some students are not, and it just seems like sort of too many steps. So instead of asking you to do Quizlet, I'll just ask for you to keep track of it in your Google Doc. If you like Quizlet and you think that it's a great study tool, I do think it's a great study tool, which is why I had asked for you to do it, I would definitely recommend doing it, despite the fact that it's not a requirement, because at the end of the year, you don't know if I'm going to say you have some sort of assessment on the vocabulary that you have been keeping track of, and it might be nice for you to have a study tool already created with all of those vocab words. And I think it'd be great anyway just to have it. But again, because it's so many steps, I won't be asking for you to do it for a grade. All right, this video has turned out to be way too long. I'm sorry for that, but I've done it a million times, and each time I wind up having to redo it and redo it and redo it. So this is about the best version that I've got. I'm gonna go with it. All right, guys, happy reading, happy keeping track of your vocab. May the force be with you. Les quiero mucho. Ciao, ciao, besitos.